Hi guys, and welcome to our second online lesson for history. Today we're going to be looking at crime and punishment in medieval times. Okay, so this is a really important topic because this comes up in a number of different ways, so we really need to make sure we're understanding everything that comes up in crime and punishment. Not only can you be asked later on about medieval times as a question when we get to eventually to the exams, we might also be asked about crime and punishment over time, so we need to be making sure we're understanding both medieval times and crime and punishment as its own issue. So to start off with today, your first task is a little bit of revision from something we did before Christmas. So you see there's a diagram of a medieval castle, and at the side you will see 8 different names for different parts of the castle. Now, there are 2 parts of names here that we didn't actually discuss before Christmas, so you might have to just think about those, try and fill in the ones that you do know, and then when you've done that, you should be able to figure out the ones that are left. So I'm going to ask you to pause here for a moment, and I want you just to think about it. Now, you don't actually have to write this down. You can take a screenshot if you want and write it if you prefer, or you can just think about it and see how many you can get right. So pause here and take 2 minutes to complete this task. Okay, so hopefully you'll be able to have matched up the majority of these different terms to the parts of the castle. So as we see here, they're all going to fly into place. The first one, we're going to start on the top right hand side. We're going to go clockwise around. We have the bailey. Now, we have discussed that some castles have inner bailies and outer bailies. But anytime you see the big area around the castle that's inside the walls, we're going to call that the bailey. Underneath that, we have the gate, or we have the portcullis, which is the cage gate that comes down. All right. And we talked about how this is very important, and maybe they can shoot from the inside out, okay, and that the bottom of the portcullis will be spiked, causing further damage for better defense. We have the drawbridge then underneath that, it's one of the easier ones, I suppose, and we know that that can come up and down and allows the moat to be an extra type of defense. We have the gatehouse. Now, the gatehouse can also be called a barbican. We didn't talk about that before, but it's good to have that extra vocabulary. We have the tower at the side. Okay, important defensive feature somewhere soldiers can fight from, that they can shoot down from there. We have the arrow loops. We didn't discuss this before, but hopefully you'll be able to figure it out. And these are those windows that we talked about, the very narrow windows they can shoot out from. We have the moat, which is the water going around the outside. And finally, we have the battlements, which is that up and down pieces on top of the wall. Remember, the wall we also call a curtain wall. So I'm hoping that most people got the majority of those correct. If you are struggling with that, you may need to go back and just revise some of these features in your own time. For today, the main things we're looking at is crime and punishment, as we said, and we want to explore how the medieval courts work. Now, I'm trying to keep this video fairly short today, so we're going to start off, and it's going to be about 5 to 10 minutes in which I will discuss the main topics and the main issues to do with crime and punishment. After that, you will have a series of questions to answer. What you're going to need to submit today is task 2 on this PowerPoint, which is those questions. I'll remind you of that as we go along. I would suggest taking notes as I go through the next slide, where I discuss each of the different aspects of crime and punishment in medieval times. This will come in very useful for you when it comes to the questions. Okay, so crime and punishment, and just you'll see down the bottom there, a useful website for this topic is Medieval Chronicles. It's a very good website that goes through hundreds of different articles about medieval times. So the first thing we're going to talk about, in the medieval time, there is quite a lot of crime at the time. However, there is no police force. And the reason that we might say there's no police force is that people are expected to police each other. All right. Now, we do have soldiers in different towns who may get involved if there's a large fight, but there is no police force set in stone to try and deter crime like we have today. So there is no police force. People are very much expected to police each other, to uphold the law amongst each other. And the way that they encourage this is through having the threat of extreme punishments. So most people are good people and will just obey the law because they know it's the right thing to do. Those people who think about committing crimes will know that if they are caught committing these crimes, there is going to be a severe punishment, and this is hoped as a way to deter people from ever committing crimes, that they would know about a terrible punishment, which we'll discuss in a few minutes. So there is no police force, which means that we need to have a system to actually deal with criminals. There is going to be crime, and people are going to accuse people of crime, and there's no police force there to kind of be the middleman or trying to deal with some of these issues on the ground. So the court systems are quite busy. Anytime there's a crime committed, it's going to go immediately to the court system, and the courts are going to have to try and deal with it. Now, there is quite complicated ways in which the courts work. Often what they do is they divide people into groups, and the groups then have to watch out on each other and kind of make sure that everyone in your group is following the law. But if you are brought to court, there is a number of different ways in which trials are conducted. Now, there are jury trials in which a jury may decide to sit down and deliberate how things are going to happen. However, usually the way that they decide whether you're innocent or guilty might not be based essentially on fact, and they use quite strange methods to come up with their decisions on who's guilty and who's innocent in different disputes. So the first type you use is when you have two people accusing each other of something. So, for example, I come and I accuse someone else that they have stolen something from me, or that they have damaged my property, or something along those lines. And often what would happen here is there will be something called a trial by combat. And a trial by combat essentially is exactly as it sounds. The two people who are involved in the accusation are told that they must fight each other. And the person who wins the fight, quite simply, is declared innocent. So, very, very simple idea. Doesn't really make sense to us nowadays, but often what they thought at the time is that because they were incredibly religious, which we've talked about before, they believed that God would side with the innocent person and help them to win the fight. And so anyone who was getting into a fight, into this trial by combat, they believed that God would show them who is the innocent person and make them the victor. In a similar way, they also relied on the intervention of God when they look at trial by ordeal. Now, trial by ordeal is a very, very cruel, difficult way of dealing with crimes. Essentially what it involves, and this is something that's used very, very regularly in medieval times, someone is brought to court and is accused of committing a crime. Now, often they are put through things called a trial by water and trial by fire. In these trials, they are essentially injured quite badly, whether through the use of different types of water or being injured by being burned, essentially. After the trial, after they are put through this punishment, or this, it's not even considered a punishment, after they're put through this ordeal, they are bandaged up and are sent away for a few days. After a few days, they're told to come back to court, and the court will look at their injuries. And if their injuries are starting to heal and heal well, they believe that means that God is on this person's side, and therefore they must be innocent. If the injuries are not healing well, then they must be guilty because God is therefore punishing them even further. If you're found innocent, then you're innocent. You're let go. You're allowed to go back to living your life. And essentially you've been put through some kind of torture for no reason at all. If you are found guilty, however, the ordeal itself is not your punishment. While you have been grossly injured and hurt by this and punished already, this doesn't actually count as your punishment. Your punishment could be something much, much more severe. So if you're found guilty by either trial by combat or trial by ordeal, you are then going to be punished in a new way. These two things are only about deciding who's guilty. And the punishments that they use are very, very severe. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about them here. I'll just give you the basics. If you are interested, you can search up a video by Simple History called Punishments and Torture in Medieval Times on YouTube. They go into this in a bit more detail, but I do warn you that it is quite gory, some quite not very comfortable imagery to deal with when we're talking about this. In the less gory way, punishments are very, very severe. For people, say if you're convicted of murder, the punishment usually for this would be execution. So you could be hung, you could be executed in a variety of different ways, but execution is the general punishment for being found guilty of murder. Likewise, other serious crimes include things such as treason and heresy, so being not being a bad Christian. And again, these are punished in very, very severe ways, with punishments going up as far as being hung, drawn, and quartered, which again I will let you kind of discuss or explore for yourself if you want to know what that is. It's a very, very violent type of punishment. For lesser crimes, punishments could also be quite arduous, however. So one of the most common crimes of the time is theft. And the reason for this is that people are very, very poor, people are very hungry, and in order to feed themselves, often they do turn to stealing food or stealing money in order to pay for food. Theft is very, very widespread. However, there are severe punishments still to deal with this, and the punishments, this can show you, this is just an example of how severe punishments don't necessarily act as a real deterrent against people committing crimes if they're really that desperate. The punishment often for theft could be to the extent of having your hand chopped off. Other common punishments for different crimes would include things such as a pillory, and that is what you see in the picture here, where a person would have their head and their hands trapped in a block of wood for a certain amount of time. It could be a few hours, it could be days, it could be for quite extended periods of time. And this was a humiliation type of punishment. But on top of being humiliation, where people would see you, people would also throw things at you, so there's physical punishment to it as well. In the most extreme cases, when people were in the pillory, they may start off having things like rotten fruit or animal excrement thrown at them in a very degrading way. If the crowds around them got too violent, they could even have stones thrown at them when people were killed in the pillory. There are a variety of other punishments, the rack, the stocks, and things like that, which if you want to explore, it is up to yourself. They are quite violent. What you need to be really aware of is that the crimes were quite widespread, particularly theft was quite widespread, and it was a very violent society. And these crimes were dealt with in a very, very severe manner with very, very harsh punishments. Okay? Crimes that even though nowadays we might not consider some of these crimes that they would be punished for, we won't even consider crimes. Things like gossiping could be considered a crime. Heresy, so speaking bad about God or about religion, could be considered a crime. Being drunk can be considered a crime. And whilst we may not maybe promote these ways of living, they are not punishable by crime for the most part in today's society. In medieval times, they very much were punished very, very severely. So it is important to be aware of what the crimes were and that they were punished very severely. So like I said, if you want more information about these punishments and crimes, there are two resources there. You have the Medieval Chronicles website and you have the Simple History videos. Your second task and your main task for today, and I see a picture of the pillory here just as an example, a bit more clear than the other one. The main task for today is to answer these 7 questions on the slide at the moment. So I will suggest pausing the video here and going and answering these questions. When you have them answered, you need to take a picture or a screenshot of the answers, and that is what you're going to upload to Teams today. Now, all of the answers obviously need to be written in full sentences. I don't want any one-word answers. And for the question 7, it's an extended answer, so at least 3 reasons to explain. Okay, so do you think the medieval method of dealing with crime was fair? 3 reasons to explain it, so I'm looking for a short paragraph here. Okay, so full sentences please, short paragraph for the last question. You will need to do a bit of research, so if you look at the icons here, not all of these answers may have been given in the last few minutes. You will need to use the booklet, so make sure you're opening up that booklet and going to the crime and punishment section. You could use those 2 websites that I've mentioned as well. Okay, so best of luck with the work. Please make sure it's submitted by the end of the day so I can give you some feedback. Thank you.